as well as other psychiatrists in the field, at least to take charge. We cannot count numbers, so to speak, but for sure we know that in the long run, you're bound to have cases of trauma among soldiers because they engage in this issue of warfare. So all those aspects you're talking about are actually catered for. But like we say, it's a collective effort that must come into this crisis. It is not just the military.
So why do you oppose so much when Amnesty highlights some of these issues? Is it because you feel it's demoralizing to your people, or why? Because if you're saying that they do occur, but you are taking care of them, you're doing court martials, Amnesty is not lying there.
No. Okay, for fear of not wanting to take the word out of my ears, you heard him tell you, we investigate things, but you must give us the specifics. Who has committed that crime? If you don't put a finger to something, we can't just go blanket. But again, I could, that the issue of amnesty, we even had to come back to Borno State here. We actually investigated. We went around the camps. We had to make videos. We checked. We went around, and we had evidence to show that we did not have cases of that. So you could also ask the journalist. I want to put it on record that your channel's reporter here has been part of the process, which can tell you.
Thank you, sir. There's a lady here. I think the girl in yellow, the lady in yellow. Yeah, there she is. Yes, you raised your hand, didn't you? Yes. Yeah.
Talking about...
you introduce yourself, please.
Okay. My name is Barrister Minta Yusuf. I am alumni of the N.East Intellectual Entrepreneurial Fellowship by N.East. So talking about countering the narratives, this fellowship has been able to bring about 45 youths, and through the use of social media.
Are you all youths that were affected by the conflict?
Yes, and now it's not talking about, these are youths from the Northeast, okay, and then some other states in Nigeria. So we've been able to use the social media to counter narratives because a lot of youth out there don't really know what is happening in Maiduguri or other Northeast region. So in the process, we've been able to come up with a book that was launched that was publicly presented on the 29th of August in Abuja. It's called Ordinary Savior, okay, and I'm a co-author of the book. And that book talked about the stories of what has been happening in Borno State or in the Northeast in general, and the solutions
So direct from the horse's mouth. There's a book out there that allows people to hear the stories directly.
Yes, and then there are stories from the Northeast.
Thank you. My name is Kabu Kabanda. I'm representing UNICEF. So I think the discussion has been very rich and touched a number of things which we could comment on, but maybe for lack of time, we'll prioritize on some. So basically, peace and security will determine what will happen after the conflict, or what can be better for the displaced people.
So what comes first? Do you focus on eradicating the poverty and the hopelessness so that, you are able to at least cut off the blood supply to Boko Haram, or do you focus on the security first?
Right, it's really chicken and egg. So to attack it very well, I will talk in terms of the nexus between humanitarian assistance and development. This has to happen, and it's not a matter of whether it should, it's really, it must happen. So to start with, there were underlying problems already, and we have talked about in this conversation, the human development indices. Things have to improve. There was a discussion on the equity, the North versus the other parts of the region. These are differences which can be very difficult to discuss, but if they are being recognized, it's a very good thing. The question is, what do we do about it? So education is really one of the key things. I listened intently when there was this beginning a discussion about local content linked to education. This, I think, needs to be discussed a little bit more between the authorities, the Northeastern champions in education, to really fully understand what does it mean when people are now telling us the local content is important. Okay? In terms of education, the Northeast will need also children who are trained as doctors or engineers. Just recently, one of the speakers talked about education is coming from other states to teach here before. If it worked before, maybe it can still work again. It needs to be looked
Thank you
at.
very much.
My name is Ibrahim Baumachina, staff PCNI. I want to ask, what are the necessary measures that the military are now taking to return back some of the returnees of IDPs that are not indigenous of Borno State to their various states?
Now that there is a policy or now there is plan on ground to return people to the ancestral homelands, and these people are predominantly farmers,
What is being done?
How are they going to face these landmines?
Okay, that's a good question. Sir?
I am Michael Lugo, the right for this day. Mine is a suggestion. Many have alleged that the forced or persuaded return of IDPs to their homeland is like politically motivated, that they are being returned to a place that they cannot actually call home. Are we advised that we should not, based on playing politics, return people back home? There should be perfect peace before we return them back home.
Perfect peace, okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Jasper Okachuku, and I work for CDD. Mine is I'm privileged to be a psychologist, so permit me to respond to the issue about trauma that have been talked about all this while. So if I use an example of people who are victims and the challenges that you see, so you notice that the way we have designed our intervention over time, we are focused more on humanitarian, so basic need, food, shelter, clothing, but we have not really paid or prioritized the issue about psychological trauma and challenges that comes around that. Now, this is what it leads to. One of the biggest challenges is that once people eat food, what next?
Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we return, we'll come back to the panel to address some of the issues raised by members of the audience. Don't go away. Welcome back. With only a few minutes left before the end of this program, I'd like to wrap up by going back to my panel and asking them to give us their thoughts regarding this conflict and perhaps the most important issues, starting perhaps with Brigadier General Bill.
Thank you. Well, like I will always say, the first thing is that we needed to understand that the fight against Boko terrorism is not the Boko terrorists versus the military, but it is the business of all. And secondly, too, the good understanding of the fact that terrorism worldwide is a global threat. It is Nigeria, it's not just peculiar to Nigeria. And these are issues that cannot be switched off.
I know I'm interrupting, but I have no choice. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Idayat?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we are really in a difficult period because we are trying to build peace, rebuilding while there is still an ongoing conflict. But while we are that, what we must definitely prioritize are the issue of human rights, governance, and rebuilding peace, such that that danger of a well-behaved Boko Haram, we are able to nip it in the bud.
Madam Tusa?
Well, actually, we have in the past facilitated meetings between the INGOs, Borno State government, and the federal government, including the military, in terms of facilitating return back to their communities. Now, in that sense, that has provided a better understanding between all the actors in terms of return, because people do indeed want to go back to their communities, and they must do that out of willingness, not out of force. So in that instance, I consider it a major success because the parties involved are talking to each other.
Okay, quickly on the issue of donors versus people who want to politicize the returns. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that everybody is doing this intervention in good stead. So we should, have more meetings in terms of understanding what each other's mandates are. And that facilitates better understanding, and the people benefit more.
Thank you very much. Dr. Masha?
Okay, I think it's a collective responsibility, and everyone has its own role to play, even from as little as how you present, or you understand, first of all, and then present a situation. If I give an example real quickly about Burma, the initial visit to Burma, I remember there was a story around people dying, mass graves, and that the military was not being very supportive and a few things like that. But by the time we went into Burma and we looked at where people had been put, in the hospital, it was the safest place. That becomes their life. That's their reality. So people will die, will be buried. So if you see a grave, somebody has to be buried somewhere. That is where they live. That is where they do everything. So that's their community.
So not
to
mass
spin,
graves.
yes. So to spin the narrative around mass graves was not very responsible. And so it's important that we take responsibility, no matter how little it is that we have to do. And also it's a continuous engagement of all stakeholders, and to basically take responsibility. And that way we can build the trust that is required for us to be able to move this forward.
We have run out of time and so have to leave it here. Our gratitude to our panelists. Thank you all for coming. Our audience here and also the audience at home. We also want to thank the Northeast Children Trust Fund, the Nigerian Army, the government of Borno State. Join us on Wednesday, the 3rd of October, for another edition of The Call. On behalf of Channels Television and Daria Media, I'm Kadria Ahmed in Maiduguri, wishing you a good evening.